What's up, everybody? Welcome on in. That time of week, it is the Sooners on SI podcast here, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're YouTube, what's up? If not, what's up? Also, the whole crew is here as we wind down a little bit the portal season. Ryan Chapman here, per usual. We got our man who was fighting through Ghost Adventure. John, I gotta say, you clearly have not watched enough Ghost television shows because that ring camera footage, I was like, that is a moth or a spider that is on your camera. John Hoover in Tulsa.
Yeah, we've had some weird things going on our deck the last couple of days. Last night, there was a little flashing light that's just bouncing back and forth and moving around, and it seemed to get angry when I turned my attention away. I was like, what the heck is that? Somebody said, go wipe off your camera. There's something on the IR. So I did that, and then today, a microburst comes and blows all my furniture off my deck. I'm like, hang on, what's going on back here?
Who's going through it? OU basketball fans are going through it. Carson was on it last night, our man Carson Field. I'm sorry, and I don't know if it quite qualifies for hardship, but I do apologize for assigning you to be there last night.
Yeah, it was a tough one last night. Definitely saw some cool dunks, though. That might be the silver lining of my experience at the LNC last night. All things considered, though, doing well. Happy to be potting with you guys.
We got the man, Ryan Aber, who him and I will be ramping up our women's basketball coverage as LSU and Kim Mulkey walks into town on Sunday. Then you got a time for another pod, South Carolina. But Ryan, will you be present for a hey, buddy, as Kim Mulkey makes her grand return to the LNC?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to bring Jason Kersey back into the fold for that one. The real question is, will Sherry Cole be in attendance? And it's not going to surprise me if she is, as Sherry and Kim have shared some love over the years. So it'll be a fun week at the LNC with the women's basketball, and we'll see if they're able to bounce back from a couple of tough losses.
Yeah, we'll hit all of that here in a little bit. We'll get to the disaster on the men's side of the Lloyd Noble Center, the women's hoops route that they're in. But let us dive into the football world, gentlemen. Some news and notes from around college football before we get into Oklahoma specifically. Don't know if you guys saw this or not. I think it was Dave Uppen who was hanging out at the big coaches convention. Looks like the coaches at the convention have unanimously voted to put forth to the D1 committees a 9-game redshirt rule instead of a 4-game redshirt rule. So that still has to get rubber stamped, things like that. So I guess we'll see if that means that you have guys. It's insane if that passes, that now you can play the entirety of conference play and then all of the postseason and still maintain your red shirt. Meanwhile, if Owen Heineke steps onto the field once, he's having to appeal for lacrosse. That's kind of wonky, kind of wild. Wednesday, as we record today, is the deadline for underclassmen to declare for the NFL draft. So I would say if you see us looking at our phones, stuff like that, I don't know if we're going to get an announcement officially or not, but if you're looking at, Isaiah Satania, Kip Lewis, like today is the day they have to file the paperwork, start that process of it, having filed all that stuff. I would imagine that if they're coming back, which it feels like they are, Oklahoma would want to announce that and get all the pomp and circumstance and all that jazz. But just going to give you a heads up as of right now at 12:20, no announcements, nothing like that. If something changes while we're potting, we'll let you know. If it happens right after we get done potting, go to the website, OklahomaSoonersOnSI.com. We'll cover every angle of everything while we wait some announcements. There was a unofficial announcement. It's been announced by everywhere other than the University of Oklahoma. A new face that will be on the Oklahoma sideline next year. Not playing, not helmeted. Yep, you guessed it. That is legendary Las Vegas Raider Jason Witten will be the new oh, and he also played for the Cowboys. Jason Witten, who's going into the NFL Hall of Fame, like, as soon as they can, like, get the ink dry and the press release out and officially announce all that stuff for him coming off his retirement, he's going to come in and a big splash. What was that, last Thursday that was announced? Because, of course, they don't time news to our podcast schedule. John, this was a position group that has been circled. I think that don't have to get into the Joe John of it all. I think everybody knows the score there. We've yelled about it for years and years and years. But now that we've had some time to sit on it and kind of simmer and think about it, big splash hire for Oklahoma. What do you think Jason Witten's going to bring to the Sooners?
How angry is Sooner Nation going to be if he's having to miss practice in July to go be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Hey, he should be coaching our tight ends this week. Just kidding, of course, somewhat. Yeah, no, he's a guy that I did a video on this last week when it happened, and I feel strongly that A, he's probably going to coach him up just fine. B, he brings credibility because he's Jason Witten. But the credibility that he brings has planted seeds already throughout the coaching world in the state of Texas. First of all, Cowboys legend, right? Mr. Jason Witten, the Jason Witten Award, right? NFL Man of the Year award winning Jason Witten. Everybody loves the dude. He's a great guy, family man, Christian, upbringing, all that good stuff. Well, when you take that with the star on your helmet and you take it out into the communities in Texas and you start saying, hey, coach, hey, high school coach at ABC High School, you got a couple of 4 stars and 5 stars. Can we swing by this afternoon and maybe see your guys up close, meet these guys, see them face to face? Jason Witten's coming to our school? Yeah, absolutely. Let's line up the principal and the board of directors and the high school everybody's going to want to see and meet and get some FaceTime with Jason Witten, including the 4-star and the 5-star recruits and their parents and their families and their agents, right? It just brings an instant cachet when you're Jason Witten and you walk in somewhere in Texas and somewhere where you have coached for the last 5 years, right? You've been a successful high school coach, winning state championships in 23 and 24. All of a sudden you're coaching the Oklahoma Sooners and you're looking for tight ends. You're sorting through tight ends everywhere across America, but especially in Texas. I think that's going to be the biggest thing that Jason Witten brings. Whether or not he can magically suddenly coach the OU tight ends, that would be good. That would be great. But just being able to land those guys, go out and recruit them. And same for the portal. If you got guys in the portal who know who Jason Witten is, holy cow, Jason Witten? Yeah, I'll take his phone call. So that's going to be, to me, the biggest factor of having him on staff.
Yeah, I'm with Hoove. It's just so big from a credibility standpoint and a recruiting standpoint. I mean, that's a hell of a recruiting pitch. Like, hey, we have a future NFL tight end on staff as the tight ends coach. Why don't you want to learn from what this guy has to say? He's done some good things for the Dallas Cowboys, very short stint with the Raiders, as Ryan alluded to. But as far as his coaching experience, really his only experience is being the head coach at a private school in Texas. So not a ton, but successful program from everything that I've heard. And it's not like his role is going to be just this massive overarching role. He gets to specialize with what he knows best, the tight end position. That's obviously going to be such a different looking group next year when you look at Hayden Hansen, Rocky Beers coming in, no more Jaron Kanik, Will Huggins, Carson Kent. It's a complete overhaul of that position group, and having someone that's still fairly youthful, has done it for a long time at the NFL level. It's just so big, and I think it solidifies the foundation for the future, assuming the offensive staff stays in place for the next several years. It seems just on the surface like a home run for the Sooners.
Yeah, Aber, just real quick, I know we had you write the story. You did some digging on former NFL guys that have made it over, and I know that'll be the first thing that if you're stoked, I think you should be stoked. There's going to be a lot of people that immediately go, well, hang on, he's not actually coached tight ends yet, but you dug into it. There's a lot of guys that have made this jump, and I do think it is important, though, Aber, that it's not I retired from the NFL yesterday, now I'm immediately hopping over to Oklahoma. He does have coaching experience, not tight end coaching experience specifically at this level, but it's not like Jason Witten's coming to this thing blind.
Yeah, and I think that's helped not only in building him as a coach, and we'll see just how good of a coach of tight ends he is, because sometimes it's really hard for superstars to coach, mortals in the sport that they excelled at. I mean, heck, you think about Ryan Sandberg and Ted Williams on the baseball side. Sometimes it's hard to speak that language to them, but I think Jason Witten's high school experience helps, but also keeps him, ingratiated with the Texas high school football coaches. And I think that's as big of an element to this thing as there is. But I think more and more really good NFL players have started making that leap to coaching colleges. Now, many of them go straight to being head coaches. We saw Deion Sanders do that. Trent Dilfer did it. A couple of other guys, but we've seen more and more. Eddie George did it, although he's back in the assistant coaching ranks. But we've seen more and more guys take the route of his assistants. Warren Sapp and Marshall Falk on the Colorado staff, although Marshall Falk got a head coaching job. Patrick Surtain Sr., I think is one of the ones who took a very similar path to what Jason Witten has gone through, and Patrick Surtain Sr. was let go by the Florida State coaching staff, on the Florida State coaching staff recently, but had some success there, both recruiting and in developing. Like I said, it's gonna take some time to figure out if Jason Witten can coach tight ends, but I think the recruiting element, especially initially, is going to be a big boost for that group and their ability to bring in big time players at that position.
I'll just quickly. I probably oversimplified that Jason Witten's going to go in and recruit the best tight ends in Texas. They're going to bring him in, probably, I would guess, as a closer for all positions. Okay, quarterbacks, running backs, especially offense, right? Offensive line, maybe even some defensive guys are going to get some face time with Jason Witten.
Yeah, especially I think that one linebacker from down there might get a little bit of face time with Jason Witten.
Yeah, number one recruiting battle. You got to win the linebacker. Cooper Witten?
Cooper, I believe. Yeah, Witten is his last name.
Yeah, Carson.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, it's really interesting because the results, kind of like Aber was saying, is mixed when you see these former NFL stars going to be coaches at the college level. You look at Colorado, they haven't been amazing. They had one pretty good season. Herm Edwards, what he did at Arizona State was not particularly impressive, but you see the recruiting that these guys are able to do. I mean, Colorado not only getting Travis Hunter, but Shedeur Sanders. ASU got Jaden Daniels when Herm Edwards was the coach. So, I mean, that credibility does play a big role. And then I think when you take somebody like Jason Witten into a smaller role where he's not leading the whole team, he's not playing the Brent Venables role, he is focused on one position group, and then obviously having a big recruiting pool, I think that's what makes this a recipe for success, and not necessarily needing just the decades-long coaching experience that somebody like a Brent Venables has and adds to the staff.
I am feeling optimistic, mainly because Chelsea haven't lost to Arsenal yet today. And when you look toward Monday night, Indiana and Miami going to get after it in Miami. Jason Taylor is a guy that spent a couple of years at St. Thomas Aquinas, and he is the best edge room in the country, basically. Now, a lot of that's due to his coaching. A lot of that's due to resources and things that Miami can do to bring in some of the best guys. And it's a problem that Jojan had, that the guys... Frankly, candidly, he never had a chance to coach an elite tight end room. And is that because he couldn't recruit the guys? Is that because they didn't have enough of the percentage of the NIL pie toward tight ends? Whatever. Everybody, ultimately, the coach of the room has to wear it. I have to imagine that when you look at Jason Witten, he probably was like, hey, if I'm going to sign on, you're going to equip me to give you guys a tight end room that you want. I would have to assume that was part of it. And he is not officially announced by Oklahoma yet, but basically everyone but Oklahoma has announced it off and running. So should be fun. Excited to see. I had this thought just in passing. Lastly on this before we move on. What do you guys think a guy like Ben Arbuckle, who when he took the Oklahoma job was 29, turned 30, a guy that we've talked about, a Texas kid, a West Texas kid, all that stuff. Do you think if we went to Ben Arbuckle 10 years and he goes like, hey, dog, in 10 years, you're going to be heading up a staff with DeMarco Murray and Jason Witten, he'd be like, what is happening? What happened in my life? I'm over them on the organizational flow chart. What's going on there? I think that's kind of I can't wait to talk to Ben Arbuckle to be like, what was your reaction when you found out that you'd be coaching with Jason?
Ryan, you mentioned the NIL kitty for tight ends. Brent Venables, as we all know, last year donated back to the university for the NIL purposes, $1 million. Somebody I know, I'm trying to think of his name, Jason Witten, I believe it was, $82 million in NFL earnings. Is he allowed by rule, by law, by NCAA standards to donate to the OU's NCAA or NIL tight end kitty? $82 million is what he made as a player, and that doesn't include endorsements. So I don't even know if that's legal. Legal.
Yeah, I have wondered. Well, nothing is illegal anymore. It seems because it's. Yeah, I have wondered: is a job description of some of these coaches like, as you have front offices that are doing more and more of the scouting work? When you get to like portal season, is it almost like an athletic director needs to be able to fundraise? Does like a tight ends coach need to be able to fundraise with some donors to get? I don't know. It's weird. Maybe that's a total asinine January 14th thought. Maybe it's something that's the future of the sport. I don't know. We will see. But Oklahoma themselves not done. The transfer portal does not officially close until Friday. That is for players entering the portal, keep in mind. That doesn't mean that Oklahoma has to have had everybody announced by Friday and all that stuff. You get a 24-hour lag time. So technically, by the time we close down shop, head hits pillow on Saturday, they should be no shock departures. Can still make additions. Since we last talked, Oklahoma has 3 or 4 transfer portal additions, depending on how technical we want to be. The 3, for sure, former Georgia Tech offensive lineman Peyton Joseph, former Washington State wide receiver Mackenzie Alyani? I couldn't really find a pronunciation guide. And then Georgia State defensive tackle Bishop Thomas. Yes, the Georgia State that plays at Turner Field currently. Oklahoma also had...
Don't call it Turner Field to those people.
Yeah, well, guess what? It's Turner Field to me, damn it. Turner Field, right there. Also, PJ Adebore spent approximately 120 seconds in the portal, and then he's out of the portal. I don't know what the ruling is on PJ. Does he count in OU's portal rankings like David Stone kind of did? Does he not? I think we all have a pretty good breakdown of what PJ Adebore can bring to the Oklahoma Sooners. It is interesting, though. I think we saw guys, Carson, I'll go to you here. With Alex Van Sumeren signing with USC, that was Oklahoma's number 1 DT target. We'll see what our guy, Kenny from UTSA, if he ends up filling out and moving inside, kind of like Jonah Laulu, or if he stays outside. But they need another guy, and getting a guy that is well-traveled in Bishop Thomas, but one that enjoyed a breakout year last year. If he's just added to your depth rotation, I think this is going to be a just fine thing to give some of those young guys time to come along, whether it's this year or next year.
Yeah, I think it's huge just for the depth more than anything. Having guys like David Stone and Jaden Jackson back, assuming they're healthy, those are going to be the 2 guys on the interior of the defensive line. And you should feel really good about that. 2 of the best defensive linemen, not only in the SEC, but nationally. They're fantastic players. But having someone to kind of overtake a lot of the snaps that Marcus Strong likely would have gotten this year if he didn't transfer out, I think that's big. Getting somebody that's proven, even though at a smaller level like Bishop Thomas, I think that's big. Probably seeing more of a role from Nigel Smith this year. Presumably his role on this defensive line will increase. I still think they could add probably one more depth piece to the inside of the defensive line. Assuming Ozawalu does stay on the outside, I think getting one more tackle would be a good thing. But overall, that's a huge pickup, just adding to the depth, kind of taking what Marcus Strong would have brought to the D-line in 26.
Yeah, you got Trent Wilson there hanging out too, another one of those young pieces as well. Not quite going to be able to add Devin Robertson, one of the 2 commits that Oklahoma alongside linebacker Taven Epps picked up at the Navy All-American game. 2027 recruits. We'll talk about them here in a second, but wouldn't mind that as well. I saw some very few reaction to the Washington State receiver edition. I would just say this, guys. Oklahoma didn't grab Cam Coleman, but Trell Harris and Parker Livingstone, Stone, we'll find out officially. Neither of those guys came super cheap, and when your entire 2024 class is gone, you're going to need bodies, and getting a 6'1 guy who had 1 year of overlap with Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer is not the worst thing in the world. Am I telling you he's going to contribute next year? No. I think he also had a leg injury of some sort, so maybe that factored into the lack of production. He had a good bowl game, but get that going. And then Aber, something that we know Oklahoma needed to do is just continue to add depth. Getting a guy like Peyton Joseph seems as good as anything because it's a 4-star recruit. And we're allowed to say that because he was just a true freshman a year ago. That doesn't mean like, oh my God, 5 years ago he was a 4-star recruit, things like that. Played in just 5 games, only 1 on the offense. It was like 4 snaps. But one of those guys with 3 years of eligibility left who could technically redshirt this year if he needed to just kind of rebuild that depth on the interior and give Bill Beanbo more guys. This seems like everything you could ask for out of like a depth portal ad when you're rebuilding that second string of the offensive line.
Yeah, absolutely. They really needed to build up the depth there, and I think we talked about this last week. But you think about where they would have been depth wise this season, even with the offensive line not being as great as they would have hoped, but at the same time. They had to slide in all kinds of guys in different positions. So I think he's a guy that I wouldn't, certainly project him among that starting group, but I think he's got a chance to be a fairly significant contributor at some point if they need him. And judging by the way that things have gone the last couple of years, they're going to need as much depth as they can get up there. So I think it was a solid pickup for Bill Bedenbaugh's group.
Something that, John, I think it might have been the Tennessee game that Brent was joking with my question about, hey, Eddie Pierre-Louis and Michael Fasusi and Ryan Foche, those guys, loud environment, 2 thumbs up, right? But this will be I think they had the heavy hitters as far as the big ad in an Marion Harris, if that's what you want to call it, that. And then I think it's just retain your guys up front that we're going to start, and you're betting on development, which I think that is something that's perfectly fine to do when you're talking about a couple of true freshmen, a redshirt freshman, and a center who, while he only has 1 year left, he did not go through spring ball. He got there in the summer, and Jake Michla, a post-spring portal. Those are the guys I'm willing to give it a year and see what kind of improvement you get, as opposed to a guy you've seen 3 years from and go, okay, well, what's suddenly going to be better here in year 4 or something like that when we get into the conversation of is returning depth good depth? I think returning production on the LU offensive line is good returning production this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. I think they got it took them a couple of years, it seemed, but I feel like they got the core of that group in Fasusi and Foje and Eddie Pierre-Louis. They got that core together. 3 guys that are going to start together, play together for 3-4 years. That's huge for Bedenbaugh in terms of development. Now, what comes behind that? Depth. You've got to find that depth. And unfortunately for Oklahoma in 2026, a lot of those pieces that could have been developed as really valuable, hey, fill us in, slide over, step in for a few games, that kind of depth, that all went out the transfer portal. Almost all of it did. 7 offensive linemen left. So, yeah, that's too bad. And from there, yeah, there you go. He's from there, he's going to have to start over again. Bedenbaugh is, in terms of developing young guys or identifying guys in the transfer portal who can come in and get a few snaps here and there, get a few games here and there, like Michaela did, like Baklenko did early in the season. If you're able to weather that, you've got a small class coming in 2026 and some absolute monsters coming in 2027. Then maybe you can start to sustain kind of what they started the back half of this year.
Yeah. Then from there, it's just a matter of Carson. I know that you kind of tallied the what else does Oklahoma still need to add. A lot of that going to be contingent on at linebacker. The expectation, there's an offer in front of Kip Lewis that the expectations for him to sign. We'll see if they officially get that signed and announced, all that stuff. We're obviously still waiting on anything official either way from Owen Heineke. Satania, same boat as Kip Lewis, it sounds like. Sandell already announced he's coming back. Let's just assume, for the sake of numbers, Satania's in the boat. Kip Lewis is in the boat. When you looked at it, you already mentioned maybe another interior defensive guy. Where else did you kind of look at and go, hey, might be a number here, might be a number there? Because we're firmly into the depth portion of transfer portal happenings.
Yeah, 100%. I think in addition to Hayden Hansen and Rocky Beers, getting another tight end would be big. Just looking at what they're going to return, it's not much. You got Cade McIntyre back. You have 2 incoming freshmen, both of whom are supposed to be good players, but no college experience. I think getting a third guy maybe behind Hansen and Beers, I think that could be big for the tight end room, which, as we touched on, is going to look so much different this year. So I think that's one need. I think linebacker, talking about, let's say they get one of those guys, Heineke or Lewis, back. I still think they need one more guy, losing Sammy Omasigo, Kobe McKenzie, Kendall Daniels playing that cheetah spot. He's not going to be there. I think just getting one more linebacker would really help solidify that. Obviously, you have guys like James Nesta, Marcus James, Taylor Heim, guys who have looked good on special teams / reserve roles, but can you really trust full production in bigger roles at this point. Who knows? So I think getting one more linebacker's big, maybe another cornerback, which obviously a depth piece there because Cortland Guillory's not giving up his spot. Eli Bowen's not giving up his spot. But getting one more guy in the secondary, I don't think that would hurt either.
It'll be interesting. In the tight end room, it's Tale told us time. Who is the third man? That is what everyone has always been asking themselves, and I would suggest not signing Hulk Hogan. I don't know how that would go. Aber, as we see, like we said, some depth stuff. I'm not expecting massive splashes just because that's the nature of the portal, things like that. What do you think that we've learned as you sat back and watched Jim Nagy and his front office staff get their first real go at it? Not a post-spring portal where the options are limited. What do you feel like you know better about this front office staff and kind of how Oklahoma will be shaping itself up roster-wise over the next couple of years now that we've got to see Jim Nagy and crew in action?
Yeah, I think clearly the priorities are a little bit shifted there. We've seen them have some more success with guys who have been at the major college level. It's not just a lot of picking from Kennesaw State and Georgia State and teams like that, even though there's certainly some of it with, what we talked about with Colorado State, Bishop Thomas, a guy who had started off at Colorado or Florida State, in Colorado before winding up at Georgia State. So just a little bit different look. And I think it's, as much about learning what Jim Nagy's thoughts and priorities are as just seeing him go through a full evaluation process and where it doesn't have to be so rushed. And that's something that he talked about when he was hired, is the fact that they were going to evaluate guys sort of as the season went on, where you're not just caught flat-footed and it's not just, hey, this guy's going in the portal, let's take a look at film, let's pull all the information that we have on this guy. It's, hey, this guy's in the portal, bring up what we've got and we can be ready. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is being able to jump on these things, because so often when you're the big program who jumps quickly on a guy, you can make a bigger impact than if it takes some time and you're the fifth or sixth program to reach out to those guys. I think that's the biggest thing we've seen from this cycle.
John, and I think kind of building on that, we've seen too, it's not just the preparation, it's the plan of attack, because we saw immediately what were the first couple of names. What did Oklahoma really need? They needed a tight end. One of their top targets, Hayden Hansen, whether that was your top target or not, Oklahoma got him in, got him signed. He was announced Sunday. You didn't get into a big, long, drawn-out bidding war with all ACC type guy and Trell Harris. That was immediate. He's here. He takes one visit. He's in. It was a heads-up OU Indiana with like Parker Livingstone, but he's here. He's in. That gets wrapped up pretty quickly. I think it's not just the preparation, but execution, as opposed to like last portal where it was kind of like, well, they're bringing in this guy. Now they're bringing in this guy. It doesn't really... Yeah. It felt like it was a little bit all over the map as opposed to streamlined like we've seen.
Yeah, what it felt like this year, okay, you've got one portal and it's 2 weeks. And it felt like Oklahoma approached that. Maybe I'm oversimplifying again. That's just what I do. I have a very simple brain. It felt like Oklahoma spent the first week saying, these are the guys, these are the positions that we've identified that we absolutely need. These are the guys we have to go after. This is the money we have available to spend on that position or in this group or whatever it is. And it felt like week 2 has been more of a, hey, we need some depth pieces. We need some pieces of, we need some guys who want to be here. We need some guys who might not have a huge NIL demand, come in here pounding their fist on the table with their agent next to them saying, I need this much money to come to Oklahoma. Maybe some of that's going on, but it just feels like the first week was spent hitting the highlights, bringing in the big guns, and the second week has been spent so far kind of filling in the cracks, kind of finding those depth pieces and those developmental pieces that can help out later down the line.
And on paper, Carson, I've liked the give and pull or the give and take of, we need a dude at wide receiver. Let's go get an all-ACC guy. We need a dude at linebacker. Let's target Cole Sullivan. And then it's still like, and Brent Venables needs to close that deal. Like it's not just the front office. Brent Venables, hey, we need some depth at defensive end, maybe defensive tackle. Well, we've got this guy at UTSA who a lot of people like. Let's take an upside swing on this, and he's got some eligibility left. Hey, we need some depth on the interior. Doesn't have to be immediate. Georgia Tech's got a guy that just entered the like. I liked the balance they had of like, where do we need an established guy versus where can we take our swings and let the evaluation side of the front office really shine.
Yeah, no, it really is a good balance. I feel like we talked so much last year about what are these receivers from FCS schools gonna do in Norman, Oklahoma, playing against SEC opponents. And there were flashes for sure. I mean, Giovanni Gibson came on late in the season, had some really big grabs. Keontae Lewis early in the year had some really good games, but you can feel a little bit more confident about players like Trell Harris, who have competed in the ACC. Parker Livingstone, who has played in the SEC, played against Oklahoma's outstanding defense for that matter. And then you look at some of those depth pieces who have been good at group of five level, stuff like that. I think it's just a really good balance of finding out where they need to allocate the money, where they can maybe save a little bit and add production from. Maybe it's a little bit of a risk because, okay, what's the jump from UTSA or Georgia State going to look like? But I feel like they've done a good job, and not necessarily the flashy, oh, we got Cam Coleman that Texas is probably doing victory laps around right now. But finding quality players proven at this level and then also getting depth, I feel like the approach has been really sound. And maybe that just comes with another year of having that front office staff.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch, and we'll continue to monitor. And as any new stuff comes down, you know the place to be, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. We got it all for you. We still got our big portal tracker that it's my baby. I'm all over it. We're all over it as a crew, but I'm the one that ultimately is like, wait, did I put that in there? Just rounding up some of the exits, if anyone cares. Kendall Dolby, part of the crew that's headed to Mississippi State, along with Isaiah Autry-Dent and Zion Raggins, as far as that goes. Some of the other guys, Javante Barnes at Kentucky, you got Taylor Tatum at Michigan, and then technically Hollywood Smothers at Texas means Oklahoma will face 3 former running backs. Shout out to Gentry Williams. It's really good to see him land at Georgia. Was hoping that he got like a really good landing spot because we know if he's healthy, he's great. I think that was probably some of the consideration. I also wonder too, I'd love to be able to talk to Gentry one more time. When Trace Ford came in, he talked about at a certain point, once you hit so many injuries, when he walks out to the practice field in Stillwater, he just remembered, I went down there and I went down there, that he just needed a little bit of a refresh, and I think that he got that at Oklahoma. I wonder how much of it for Gentry is like huge with that. We'll see. Samuel Masigo, who you mentioned, Carson, he hit the portal. He landed at UCLA. I was trying to see some of the others, if there's anything big. Carson Kent to Pitt. You had Caden Helms go to Minnesota. So pretty good landing spots. Kobe to Northwestern. So we will see. We'll have plenty of crossover with a bunch of former Sooners, whether it be that Michigan game, like we said, all the way to Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi State, a little bit of Texas with some love there between OU and Parker Livingstone. So good stuff there. And it's not just the portal class. Oh, go ahead, Hoover. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see those guys. What, 6 or 7 guys, 7 or 8 guys that are going to play against OU in 2026. That'll be fun. But the one that stands out to me, as long as we're talking about departures, is Sammy Omosigo. And that surprised me when it happened, right? The news came out and it was like, huh, really? Okay. They bring in Cole Sullivan, and a couple, not long after, you get Sammy Omosigo in the transfer portal, and he posted this a couple of days ago on his Twitter page. He says, "Dear Oklahoma, I say this with a very heavy heart, and I am truly sad to see that our time together came to an abrupt end. I never thought there would be a day where I would have to leave this wonderful university. Reiterate, I would have to leave this wonderful university, but times in college football has changed. I'm thankful for all you've done for me, blah, blah, blah." That says a mouthful, doesn't it? That says an absolute mouthful that a player who had developed here, started his adult life here, became a man, so to speak. He said that in his tweet. A guy who loved it here, a guy who was on the depth chart and was climbing and was getting more and more and more reps. All of a sudden, he says he has to leave, and he's heartbroken about it. That, I think that flew under the radar this week. That really, really pulls back the curtain and reveals some kind of raw nerves about the transfer portal and NIL and revenue sharing, and what the way coaches approach these things now. I'd like to know more about the story of that, the backstory from Sammy.
I think it could just be as simple as this. Uh, Oklahoma, we know in general, doesn't love redshirting a ton of guys. Like if you can come in, you can play on special teams. And I think that there's probably a certain extent at Oklahoma, they're like, the guys we're recruiting don't need to be 5-year guys to produce and stuff like that. And I think you saw with Giovanni Gibson, once Oklahoma landed not just Trell, but also Parker, you go, hey man, I've got one more year to prove to whoever, anyone, that I can cut it at this level and to kind of start where am I going to start on the ladder? Am I going to have to go to UFL? Am I going to be able to be a 6th, 7th round, invite guy? Am I going to be a 3rd rounder to be able to really, really try and bat it? Like it matters where you start in that pecking order in the football side of things. And I wonder for Sammy if that's like similar thing. He's looking around going, Kip probably back. If Cole Sullivan comes back, if Owen Heineke wins his appeal, and Reggie Powers has been awesome. Well, now I'm the 4th guy maybe on the interior, and I've got 1 year left. And if I want to just continue to put film out there, it might not be at the spot exactly that I want it to be, but I can go and play all the time at UCLA and show off all my skill set as opposed to having to be, because certainly didn't sound like a Texas Parker Livingston type situation there, but that's one of it. We've talked about before, guys, the effect on high schoolers, and not the 5-star kids, but maybe some of the diamond in the rough 3-star guys. Do they start farther down the football ladder because some schools are less willing to take a shot on them when they can say, hey, I can go get a linebacker out of the portal? I think that for guys entering their final year of eligibility, it's very, very delicate in a similar way, because it's the old coaching thing, right? It's my job to stock this roster full of guys to take your job. It's your job to improve and get better and keep those guys behind you. I just think that it's harder to do that now, knowing you've only got 1 more year left. And I don't know. I think it's just part of it. It's what we're seeing. You know what I mean? That you see a lot of veterans hitting the portal with 1 year left. I think just looking for playing time to do the last little bit of final touches on their NFL resume. But we will see. And I think Saban's going to play a ton at UCLA, and hopefully him and Bob Chesney can get that thing going. But it'll be interesting to see as far as that goes for sure. We mentioned not just the portal side of it, but Taven Epps and Devin Robertson. Shout out to the Navy All-America game on Saturday. Made us wait like 2 commercial breaks, and then boom, boom, OU commit. Carson, I know that when Taven Epps decommitted from Texas a long time ago, that's when we really started to throttle some stuff up behind the scenes, but 2 more additions to the class that's already out in front. Number 1 type class. It feels like, man, they keep adding. I don't know if you get like the marquee quarterback kind of guy that you need to finish first or anything like that, but it feels like Oklahoma's really laying the foundation for a bounce back class, at least in the ratings, in a huge way.
Yeah, they absolutely are. I mean, there's still 11 months until early signing day, so I mean, a lot can change, but it's hard to imagine this class falls too far off from where it's currently at. And it might not be number 1. Players will surely decommit. That just happens in recruiting. But to be number 1 at this point, to have this much offensive line talent, that's what really sticks out. How good the offensive line commits are, and then getting edge rushers like the guys they've gotten more recently. I mean, they really are building a foundation to be this, quote, hard to kill team that they brand themselves on being. Just really good work from the recruiting team, the scouting team. It's just really impressive to see the foundation they're laying. After a good class in 26, I think right now it's 14th or 15th in the 247 rankings. But to be number 1, to be ahead of these teams that probably have more money than OU, like your Texas A&M, your Texas Tech, to be out recruiting those teams says a lot about what this staff is doing.
It's a very, very, we've said it over and over again, a fantastic start as things go for that. And the good news is for Joe Castiglione / whoever Joe Castiglione's replacement is going to be, it looks like football has recovered from its wobble in 2024, headed in the right direction. You're always going to have to pay attention to football, but I don't think you're going to have to go, oh my gosh, we need to fix this, and this. It's about fine-tuning this machine and getting it going. That's good news. Bad news is the problem you're going to inherit for whoever Oklahoma's new athletic director is whenever that comes out. I would imagine sooner rather than later. This time of year is kind of what we had all predicted, if there's no football issues, would fit the timeline of probably what Oklahoma wants to do. They're going to have to immediately start getting to work on the grand quagmire that is what happens at the Lloyd Noble Center. Carson, you were there last night. It was brutal. We are not going to go blow by blow on that. We also don't have to dive into every single problem that exists with Oklahoma basketball. We did that a lot last year before they kind of pulled out of the tailspin of is the coach the issue? Is the NIL support the issue? Is the fan support? What are we? It's a big circle that we can go round and round and round. The big thing here, Carson, is OU has about 3 games. Otherwise, the Porter Moser era is probably done, and the fans voted with their pocketbook last. I know there were some other circumstances, students not back in, Thunder Spurs on the same night. That's tough. We've seen fine-ish crowds before with similar circumstances. I think there was a lot of OU fans last night that basically said, I saw the 2 road games. I've seen this exact start to SEC play or Big 12 play before, and no thank you. I will no longer be putting my ticket revenue behind Porter Moser and this whole experience at the Lloyd Noble Center.
Yeah, it's a rough time. You mentioned those road losses to Mississippi State and A&M, and I admittedly wasn't in full panic mode after those losses, just seeing that Mississippi State's Josh Hubbard is a phenomenal player and he went off for 30. That's just tough. I felt like OU's defense did have some upside. The offense really struggled. And then A&M, that's a team that has overperformed for maybe what a lot of people thought this year. Okay, you're looking at 1-2, not great, not panic mode. And then last night, losing by 17, those 17 points don't tell the story. That game Florida could have picked their score in that one. OU got outscored 60-22 in the paint. That's almost unheard of in high-level college basketball. You just don't really see that very often. 3 losses in a row, 1-3 in SEC play, and things have got to change quickly. But I think you do have to look at last year. There was a 4-game losing streak to open conference play. In the middle of conference play, there was a 5-game losing streak. So that's not to say that things can't turn around, but it's really discouraging with how much talent this team has. I mean, it was a fantastic portal class that OU got. It felt like they really did make an effort to put a winning product on the floor at the Lloyd Noble Center, and you're just not seeing that right now. There were some worrisome signs against, teams like Mississippi Valley State, Alcorn State, some really not good opponents, and you're seeing all of those things, whether that's front court struggles, offensive struggles. A lot of just inconsistency with this team has really come to light against good opponents, and they've got to get that turned around quickly. There are no bad teams opposed to last year when, okay, you see LSU, South Carolina on the schedule. You can probably chalk those up to a win even if you're not playing your best ball. There really isn't a freebie this year, and then Alabama coming in on Saturday. A lot's got to change in just a few days before that one.
Aber, this is a spot where anyone that's covered Oklahoma long enough knows that the Oklahoma basketball file, it's like complicated. There's a lot of strings of this and that and the other and all that. But I think that there's a lot of people, and I think personally, justifiably so, that are looking at and going, well, I may not know how to fix OU basketball, but I can tell you one thing. Porter Moser doesn't know how to fix OU basketball. And while I don't have a great answer of who might be able to fix it or whatever, I can for sure say it's not going anywhere. And I think as Carson kind of touched on, the big frustration is last year you get Jeremiah Fears, who kind of falls into your lap because of reclassification. You get an all-time bad bubble that allows you to not have – did you have a billion bid stealers the year before? Yeah, so maybe you got it back. But like Carson was saying, you get a little bit more NIL backing. You get some recognized guys signed on the dotted line, and it looks – worse. This is his worst team since year 2. It feels like, when that team was nowhere near anything.
Yeah, it really is. And, the fact that they're not getting very much at all from their bench right now, outside of maybe the one silver lining last night was Ella Tonsif and the job that he did hitting, what was it, 4 for 4 from behind the 3-point arc. Outscored his first 4 games easily. There was the one silver lining, but really outside of that, not getting a lot. Dayton Forsythe has struggled. Some of those other guys, Jadon Jones, hadn't scored much. And that's tough when you're thinking about the SEC. In my mind, last night wasn't the throw up the alarm thing. Florida is a really, really good team, the best rebounding team in the country. We saw that. That led to a lot of the point productions, the second chance. We knew that would be big. But in my mind, it's just the consistency that we haven't seen from this team. Yes, they played a tough schedule with Gonzaga and Nebraska, who turns out is pretty dang good there, and we're able to bounce back from those games. But like I think it was Carson said, we saw some troubling signs in some of those non-conference games where they should have just ran away and beat those teams by 40. They weren't able to do that. The Arizona State game, things like that. And it's just going to be really tough for this program to bounce back. But like you said, what is the answer? Who can come in and fix it? There are some fundamental problems with Oklahoma basketball right now, from the arena side, from the fan support side, and things like that are just really tough to overcome. But certainly seems more and more like Porter Moser isn't the answer there.
So, I'll preface by saying this. You guys know I haven't intimately covered OU basketball, but certainly I've watched all their games, over the years. I've followed it closely. I've interviewed Porter and several assistant coaches, players, whatever it is, administrators. So I know just a little bit about OU basketball. And guys, over the last 4 years, it has been, and we hate to say this, we truly do hate to say this, because I know everybody on this in this video likes him. I know everybody who meets Porter Moser likes him, enjoys being around him. But the common thread here, because he has rebuilt the roster 4 times. 4 times he has had to completely rebuild the roster. The common thread, unfortunately, is Porter Moser. And does that come down to recruiting? Does it come down to evaluating? Does it come down to actual coaching and practice? Does it come down to in-game coaching and adjustments and strategies and things like that? Does it come down to like the halftime speech, right? Or the pregame inspiration, all that stuff? Whatever it is, all those things together, it's just not working. So
yeah,
that's, again, I'm going to simplify it and just say that's kind of where Oklahoma basketball has fallen, and the fans, as you said at the beginning, the fans have spoken.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it. It's hard to pinpoint what exactly it is, but he is the common denominator of this team just kind of being painfully mediocre. I think he did buy himself another year last year with how they finished SEC play. It felt like things were finally like, okay, this is going to be a competitive program in the SEC. They get the win against Ole Miss to start this year. Gonzaga and Nebraska, those losses age well. You go after that SEC opener, like, okay, this team might actually be pretty decent, competing for, I don't know, a 6, 7, 8 seed in the NCAA tournament, to now like, okay, I'm not sure this team deserves an NIT bid. So it's got to be frustrating. And like you said, Porter Moser is fantastic with us. So we certainly would miss him if he's no longer the coach next year. Great guy, great leader for the program, but just something, whether that's motivation, recruiting, in-game adjustments, is not working. And it does seem like, unless things get turned around really quickly, that this era of OU basketball might be coming to an end.
And it's an era of OU basketball that, like, it's almost like a false start, because they were not one of the early adopters for NIL and things like that. And if you had gone back 10 years ago, I think simply saying like, hey, they're just hoping for a 6, 7, 8 seed would be like, well, that's not kind of the historically where it's been. Have they won the national championship? No, but everyone around here knows all the stuff about, the list of teams with tournament wins amongst who has not won a national title. It's like OU and Purdue, basically, that are Purdue's recently overtaken them, I believe, if I remember correctly, stuff like that. But to simply take this long to get to the point where you thought this was going to be a team that shouldn't have to ride the bubble, and now not only are they riding the bubble, they're now needing to do work. I think it just becomes, I know, like, I work with Tyler Neal at the franchise, very, very passionate, obviously has a ton more blood and sweat equity as a guy that's worn the uniform, all that stuff, but I know that he was personally very frustrated by the lack of fan support stuff. And it's like, Porter's done a really good job with the students. The students have come out a lot more than what I ever remember under Lon, things like that. Porter's had moments early where I remember back going to year 2, and it was the Alabama game, number 2 Alabama coming in. It's like, oh my gosh, that was huge, and you get that, and then they get a rocking crowd for Baylor, and then they lose because they can't defensive rebound and they can't hit a shot in the last 4 minutes. And then you go and you watch the A&M game on the road, and you go, what can they not do? They can't pull down a defensive rebound, and they can't score in the last 3.5 minutes 3 years later. And I just think that you've reached the point where, coming up all the way back to the beginning, I begrudge no fan who looks around and goes, I might not even go to Thunder Spurs, but I would rather sit at home and watch that on my couch, or I'd rather link up at Pick Your Sports Bar and watch that game and just have Oklahoma on the other screen. Because I think there's a lot of OU fans that are like, there may not be an answer, there may not be someone that can walk through that door and solve it, but again, it just gets back to, I know 100% that this guy can, and I think that's kind of where everybody is.
Ryan, you think we should spend 15 minutes talking about the Thunder on this podcast instead of OU basketball?
Well, I think it might be cheerier because the pivot I have written down here for one program that the season looks maybe dead, the other one not dead, but it is bleeding right now a little bit. That's the Sooner women. They started off this big. It's a 4-game stretch that's really an 8-game stretch but the 4 games all against top 15, top 20 opponents, depending on which week of the polls you get. Did not start very well last Thursday. Sooners fall to Ole Miss in a game that, simply put, they got punched in the mouth early, and while they clawed and worked their way back in, it felt like they never truly recovered from that, something Jenny Baranczyk talked about in a pretty intense post-game press conference. They then took that on the road to a Kentucky team that had also fallen midweek to Alabama, and the start was much better, Aber, but they got to the end of the game, couldn't execute in the last 3 minutes, and I think it's probably a good thing that their midweek, quote-unquote, bye for the SEC is coming in, because LSU, who had wobbled, got a big win over Texas, and that's who's up next on Sunday at Lloyd Noble Center.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the OU players think it's much of a good thing right now, because I imagine they're getting quite a workout in this week, as Jenny Baranczyk was certainly fired up after the way that they played over the last couple. But yeah, the offense hasn't been a problem with this team, but it disappeared in long stretches, and they really struggled to, one hit from distance, hit, what was it, just 2 3-pointers the other day, one fairly early, one fairly late from Aaliyah Chavez. Missed shots in bunches there late. Just haven't gotten the production that they would like. Sahara Williams struggled from a scoring perspective the other day, and Zaya Van has had some moments where she hasn't been the player that she looked like for much of the season to this point. So they certainly have to get some things figured out over this week, because you looked at this 4-game stretch and you knew how big it was going to be. And, I think I said on this, hey, if they can somehow go 3-1, I mean, you feel really, really good about yourself. But then when you lose the first 2, and those were the 2 sort of easy ones in this stretch, and then you get an LSU team that's finally starting to figure some things out, and then, oh, by the way, you got South Carolina looming beyond that. I mean, it's just really rough. And these aren't, I wouldn't say these are must-win games quite at this point, but they're as close to it as you can get in January in the SEC, where you've got to at least figure out a way to get one of these 2 coming up, because otherwise your prospects of hosting almost disappear.
Yeah, something that we had discussed leading into conference play. Peyton Verhulst, who was really trying to, it seems she's really struggled to figure out what her role is on the offensive end of the floor, where she's needed. That was amplified against Ole Miss. When she starts out, it was 0 for 11 and finishes 1 for 13 or 14 and only gets a 2 to go. She bounces back against Kentucky, but then Sahara Williams sets her. It feels like Aaliyah Chavez has been pretty good. I think that as a true freshman, she's still getting a handle on Aber. What it means to close in these big time games that's not balanced out by a big Zaya Van game or something like that to go along with Reagan Beers when Chavez is still, I think, trying to figure out what it means to close in this conference and close against the best teams.
And we knew that this would be, not everything was going to be perfect for Malia Chavez. I mean, heck, we saw her struggles early in the season, the first couple games, including that second game against UCLA, but she was able to learn from that. But it's different when it's a one-off game like that versus a grind of the SEC schedule and what they face and the physicality that you see in this league and things like that. And, there's no indication that she won't be able to adjust, but she's got to be able to adjust and situations, because those are things that you're going to face, not only against the teams that they've got coming up, the LSU's and South Carolina's, and then that stretch the road with Vandy and Texas back to back, but really throughout this league, you're going to face situations like that where teams are going to grind you down. And like I said, there's no indication that Aaliyah Chavez can't adjust to it, but she's got to start making those adjustments fairly quickly.
It'll be, like we mentioned, these 2 home games, and then once February kicks off, at Texas, at Vandy, boom, boom. Those are the big ones. And for Oklahoma, the women, it's different stuff we're talking about. For the women, not still worried about hosting the first 2 rounds as like one of the top 4 seeds. You just need to be one of the top 16 teams in the country. I don't think they're going to go over in this stretch, but I do think there is a lot of urgency. And I know that Ginny, I asked her about this to start the year, and she's like, we can't look at this, all that. But if Oklahoma could have wrestled away, heaven forbid, a 1 seed, but maybe one of the top 2 seeds, you could be looking at your path to trying to make something happen. Could be Norman in the first 2 rounds, and then one of the 2 regional sites is in Fort Worth. If you're a big believer in like the projections and things like that, is it Palm that puts it out there, or Cream for the women's side?
Charlie Cream.
Palm at CBS, Charlie Cream. I get all confused. They've just kind of camped out as the 2 seed in UCLA's region in Sacramento. You don't want to go Norman, Sacramento and have to fight your way back to Phoenix. You'd like to go Norman, Fort Worth, and then if you're doing good things, work your way over to Phoenix. So we shall see. This is kind of, it feels like the drumbeat of last year's season where they kind of dipped, figured it out, and then you saw, the Kentucky and the SEC tournament, stuff like that. So then they ran into the UConn buzzsaw, which I don't know if it would have mattered if that was a Final Four or a Sweet 16 game. We saw what UConn ended up doing through the tournament there. So we shall see. A couple weeks away from really firing up the preseason baseball and softball, but we're creeping up. Softball usually a week or 2 ahead of baseball. We will be there before we know it, then we'll be into spring football, and then we'll be busy again, which not that we haven't been busy, but we'll be extra busy as far as that goes. I guess things to look out for. We mentioned guys that are hanging around, staying. I do wonder how close Oklahoma's athletic director search is to coming to an end. Other than that, have we missed anything? This is the maybe take a little bit of a breath before we close the book on the portal and move forward with everything in the football world.
Well, I was actually just looking down at Twitter, and I don't see anything, which is a stunning development for our podcast, because usually we get on here and it's just all hell breaks loose. But today, it appears like we made it through without that, which of course means here in about 3 minutes, everything's going to go nuts.
Yeah, it just means that instead of being able to at the end be like, hey, wait, this actually happened, we can react. It just means that I hope that by the time you listen to this podcast, it's not grossly out of date.
But Brady gets a break today.
Yeah, Brady, his bunker trip was luxurious this go around. I do feel bad for our friends at Oregon. Dante Moore planning to announce whether he will or won't enter the NFL draft on SportsCenter. If you're going on SportsCenter, you better not go back to college. That would be my thing. But, neither here nor there. Not quite had that drama around Norman, which is a good thing for sure. Let's get moving, mainly because I got a game that's going to make me miserable kicking off in 45 minutes, and you guys don't want to be around me when that happens. So that'll do it for this week. We'll be back next Wednesday, wrapping up the close of the portal. We'll see if there's any straggling additions, because once again, don't forget.
Hey, we actually do have a bit of news.
Oh, yes. Go for it.
Former OU star George Cumbie is being inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame.
So, nice.
Not as much with this team, but we got the list of inductees into the College Football Hall of Fame, let's see, Kajana Carter from Penn State, one of the additions, Aaron Donald, Marvin Harrison, Garrison Hurst, Mark Ingram, James Laurinaitis, so some Terrence Newman, Ndamukong Suh among those guys going in. But George Cumbie, linebacker from 76 to 79, going into the College Football Hall of Fame, yet another Switzer standout who's going into that institution.
That's big time. And two of the four coaches, Gary Patterson and Chris Peterson, Oklahoma has fortunately and unfortunately made many memories and had one singular nightmare that they would like to forget against that kind of.
One of those two coaches has me blocked on Twitter. So,
well, Gary's online. We know this. Not to. And I think Gary's fine with that. Gary knows that Gary is online, so I don't think he's too upset about that. So, all right, let's close it down here. We'll be back with you guys next Wednesday. Per usual, covered everything. Big thanks to Carson for all the emotional stress that we put him through, which is just like having to deal with Oklahoma fans who are not happy with the basketball program. We get it. Big thanks to Aber. Enjoy that sleep because we're about to be into women's basketball and softball season and a hoop. Stay away from the ghost, big guy, okay? Please? Thank you. We'll see. We'll talk to you guys here on the Sooners on our Side pod next Wednesday. Peace.